Lester Horton, 1906 to 1953. Horton's lineage. He was born in 1906 in Indiana. He first became interested in movement while watching Native Americans dance in a Wild West show and began researching several different tribes and their movement. This prompted him to begin studying ballet, which he continued to do for the next 2 years. Watching a Denishawn performance had a big impact on him, and he wound up living in Los Angeles due to a job dancing in another company. In 1932, he starts his own company called the Lester Horton Dancers in Los Angeles at a time when much of dance in America was moving from LA to New York. He chose to stay in Los Angeles. In order to survive financially, he occasionally choreographed for early Hollywood musicals. His company name changed several times to Lester Horton California Ballets, Horton Dance Group, and finally Dance Theater of Los Angeles when he began collaborating with another choreographer named Bella Lewitsky. She was the teacher of the John Pennington, who was our guest artist this year. 1950, Bella leaves his company to move to New York to branch out on her own. Horton's company struggles, but eventually raises the money to send the company to perform at a festival called Jacob's Pillow. They were very successful and received very well there. Unfortunately, Horton wasn't able to go with them. He becomes physically and emotionally exhausted, falls ill, and is financially broke, so he doesn't go with them to the festival. In 1953, he dies of a heart attack in his home on Mulholland Drive. One of his students, Alvin Ailey, becomes the artistic director of his mentor's company after his death and moves them to New York City. This is an example of some of the lyrical qualities of Horton's movement. The technique itself he created using Native American movement, jazz, various different anatomical studies. It includes lyrical, circular movements focusing on stretching in opposite directions at the same time. Lateral T arabesque, lateral stretches, tilt lines, flat backs, and lunges can all be seen in his technique. This is an example of the flat back series in the warm-up, and again seen in the fortifications. And this picture is an example of his technique used in choreography. Oftentimes, you can see another choreographer's influence because he studied at Denishawn, and because he came from Los Angeles, he couldn't help but be influenced by Martha Graham. His contributions to the dance world: the Lester Horton Dance Theater in 1946 is one of the first permanent theaters dedicated to modern dance in the United States. Among the first choreographers in the United States, he insisted on racial integration in his company. He felt very strongly about that. And then he inspired Alvin Ailey to take over his company and keep the technique alive. Here you can see the lateral of Horton technique transcends into the choreography of Alvin Ailey. And this would be an example of Horton technique in a floor movement.